guys! Today I wanted to show off one of my most prized possessions, my bullet journal. I actually started bullet journaling, 3 years ago now? I almost completely filled up my old one, and back then I used to be a lot more dedicated to making the pages colorful, but I definitely like my new one a lot more. I used to do a lot more of the journaling part of bullet journaling and do habit trackers, life goals pages, gratitude pages, but nowadays I don't really bother since I was never really good about keeping up with all those things. The whole point of a bullet journal is making it useful and functional for you. And so many bullet journals are insanely aesthetic, but creating those pages can be a serious time commitment, and it was never really worth it for me. Okay, so the journal I'm going to show you covers from about September 2019 to now, just for reference. Let's start with the cover page, which features a quote from David Bowie, and this very, very sad table of contents that I forgot about approximately 2 days after I started it. Now, these are my weekly spreads. You'll notice a few things right off the bat, like the rainbow pattern, which I actually kept up for quite a while, and the fact that with every passing week into the school year, the aesthetic value gets a little bit lower. My handwriting is pretty terrible unless I try really hard, and most of the time I was making these pages in school when I was half dead, but I'm still proud that I could create something somewhat aesthetic in spite of that. I want you to remember that it doesn't matter if your bullet journal doesn't look like the perfect ones you see on Instagram. As long as it sparks joy and makes your day more functional, then it's doing its job. Also, I've covered up any information that's too personal or doxing with little post-it notes just in case you're wondering what that all is. We should take a little break and talk about the vague structure I use. I have an overview of every month with mostly just the physical things I had to go to on those days, abbreviated. The whole calendar setup was always kind of overkill for my purposes, and this actually gave me more space to write while also being more efficient. Then we've got the weekly pages. I would bring a different one of these brush pens I have to school every Monday and make these things during first hour. I needed the majority of my journaling space for these pages, and I would only have 1 or 2 days on each page since I had to fit in 6 different classes worth of homework and usually a lot of other crap I had to do after school. The shaded in boxes are what I completed, half-shaded ones are ones I half did, and the ones with lines through them are the things I never got around to that day. And yeah, there are a lot of these throughout this thing because I'm a major procrastinator. Sometimes I would use an arrow to indicate it migrating over to the next day if I was feeling fancy, but most of the time, especially later on, I would just leave the boxes perpetually empty to avoid the shame of knowing that I didn't really do any of the stuff, which maybe defeats the whole purpose, but whatever. It was still good for me to write it all down and get organized. Now, occasionally I would forget a day, and sometimes if I forgot to bring my brush pen to school, I would forget to actually label the days and do the fancy fake calligraphy thing, but for the most part, I'm pretty proud of myself for keeping this so up to date. The key was elegant simplicity, because the easier it is for you to do it every week, the more likely you are to actually do it. Now, let's talk about the notes sections. My original plan was to overlay different colored post-it notes every week and just write little quotes and short reminders to myself, but that didn't happen after the first week. It instead became a word vomit of all of my notes for English when I realized I should probably be taking notes so I don't fail the quizzes a few months in. Occasionally there's also econ or psych notes when I would forget to bring those notebooks to school. Probably my favorite pages in this journal are my Thanksgiving and Christmas pages, where I would just write down everything I had to get done over those breaks and then make little keys for the different colored highlighters. The chaos was slightly reined in up until the new year, and then I didn't try to hide it anymore. These were the dark times where I ditched the aesthetic color schemes for mostly pencil for some reason. Here are where the doodles get more pronounced and the journal gets even more chaotic as I got more bored in school. And then coronavirus struck. But more importantly, I got a fountain pen and fell in love with it and stopped using color altogether for a solid few months since I only had black ink. Also, this is Stu. I think the whole thing is kind of fitting though. The journal got darker with the world around it. Now comes my I desperately need to study for AP test pages, plus the doodles that happened after I was finally done with said tests. You'll also probably notice random blurbs that one of my friends wrote every few pages from here on out. This is my incomplete quotes page with room for it to grow. And finally a June cover page which I felt inspired to do a few weeks ago. Also, here's a mini habit tracker for the first time in this journal. That's all I've got so far, but I'll be sure to make an update video when I actually fill up the entire thing. Overall, my bullet journal is messy, chaotic, and definitely not perfect, but I think it has a personality of its own, and it's very symbolic of my life during these months in its own way. I hope this realistic flip through inspires you to keep up with your own bullet journal. All I know is I've had a lot of fun with mine. Let me know what your favorite or least favorite pages were in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe for more semi-aesthetic content. See you soon!